Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depuus. I want to thank you for being here with us today as we don't have to say the Brewers season is over. Life is back in the team, and through about 7.5 innings yesterday, I didn't know if they were going to be able to do it or not. It was a very scary game, honestly, I look and I see all the Mets fans' reactions because all of the media outlets that I pay attention to, they have a lot of Mets fans, which makes sense. A lot of them are out of New York. So just a lot of Mets coverage, a lot of people who love the Mets, whether they are good or they're bad. And they had a lot of their reactions right after the game. And it felt very similar to how I was reacting yesterday to the game that happened prior on October 1st. That first game of this series, how it was. We talked about it yesterday. I was really I was really frustrated. That's as angry as I've been to podcast anything. And you got my honest, raw reaction out of that. That was what happened yesterday with a lot of the Mets fans because they really they blew this game. If they bring in Edwin Diaz, who is their superstar closer, if they bring him in the 8th inning, I think I would have a very, very different vibe as to how things are going on today. But maybe things are maybe they wouldn't be that different. Maybe Jackson Chourio is still Superman. Maybe he's like Jackson Chourio, man. It is so hard to not talk about this kid. And of course, if you've been listening from the start of this podcast a little bit over a month ago, it's been a lot of Jackson Chourio. We know here at A Little Bit of Cheese how good Jackson Chourio is, but yesterday the national scene just got to figure out why us people here in the state of Wisconsin are so crazy about this kid. He is the first player in Brewers history to hit 2 home runs in a playoff game. He walked up to the plate yesterday. His first at bat, he was leading off for Milwaukee and sent it over the right field wall. When he was walking up there, I kind of jokingly said, like, "Hey, Chourio, leadoff home run here, right?" And then he went out and did it, and I went crazy. And that was to tie up the game at 1. Montas had a shaky first inning. Pete Alonso tripped over his bat and didn't run out a double play ball. If he had not tripped, the Mets would have gotten another run there, and that whole complexion of the game changes there. Then it would have been probably at least a 2-1 lead even after Chourio's home run. And like I said, the entire complexion butterfly effect of the game, it would have changed there. But took a little bit of luck, and the Brewers have not had a lot of great luck. And yesterday, it was proven once again that the Milwaukee Brewers need to work on their fielder, their pitchers fielding first base. Frankie Montas could not catch a ball that was directed right towards his chest in line as he was trying to cover first base. And he did not. The ball went past, and it ended up knocking 2 more runs in for the Mets. Where Montas, he pitched okay, really. It was not good. It was not what you want to see in a playoff game, but it was enough for the Brewers to come back and win the ball game. The Brewers got another run later on a sac fly, making it 3-2. And then when it came to the bottom of the 8th inning, Jackson Chourio was leading off, and he hit a home run to right field once again. That swing that Jackson Chourio has to right field, that is Hall of Fame stuff. There are not many players on the face of the planet that can take that pitch high and outside and consistently drive it over the right field wall. Like what we have, like, of course it happens, but what Chourio does, I think he hits just as many home runs to right field as he does to left field. Like his overall power to all fields is something that you just don't see. That we saw with Ryan Braun. Braun was able to do that throughout his career as well. That pitch on the outside half, you have to watch out because he could have drove it the other way over the wall. Chourio, you got the same exact thing. This kid, and now the whole nation is starting to figure out this kid is something special. And I remember going through the game when they were down 3-1 for a chunk there. And I remember I was with the people I was watching with, actually Sam, he does the podcast with us on Monday. Said, I wish we just had someone go out there and get a couple of hits. And he said, well, Chourio's got at least 3 more at bats today. And one more of those at bats and another home run to tie up the ball game at 3 in the bottom of the 8th. And at this point, they still, the Mets still stuck with Phil Maton, the relief pitcher. And after, I think Perkins got, no, it was Willie Adames actually with 2 outs. He hit a single to get on, and then Garrett Mitchell was up right after. And Maton he was 1 out away from getting out of that 8th inning. But then Maton threw it in a spot where you cannot pitch to Garrett Mitchell. He threw a loopy, slow curveball on the outer half of the plate, about thigh high, and Mitchell sent it over the right field wall. And when I saw that, I jumped so high, I'm surprised that my head did not go through the ceiling right here. It was incredible. It was one of those bone-chilling, wow, this team has life, and as down as you could feel in a 24-hour span about the Milwaukee Brewers. Because yesterday, leading up to that game, it was rough. There's not a lot of hope. I read around Twitter, a lot of it was going the same. Of course, there is still optimism. Like, hey, at least there's a game going on today. At least they have an opportunity. We'll see how undaunted this team really is, how resilient this team really is, because their backs are up against the wall, and they were. And for 8 innings, once again, they were down, and it was due to a simple, stupid fielding error where a pitcher couldn't cover first base. And that was a very, very frustrating concept for me to handle when that happened. Like, 2 errors made by your pitchers trying to cover first base in the 2 most important games of the season, the wild card series. And in 2 separate games, you have 2 bone-crushing errors that lead to deficits. It's hard to grasp. And I was not doing really well trying to grasp that concept. But where this team was able to come back from that, it just, if Chourio and Mitchell did not hit home runs, of course, I would be in a very, very different mood. Like, I hate to say that the way the Milwaukee Brewers play dictates my mood over the course of, like, my life, like my day to day. Like, I'll feel a little bit differently if the Brewers are playing well or if they aren't, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Like, things would have been pretty down today, I think, if Mitchell and Chourio did not hit those home runs there, and the Brewers would have lost and their season would have been over. Because this, like I said, to see your season after you play well for 162 games to end after a 2-game blunder, it rips your heart out, and it stinks. And it still could stink after tonight. I'm not going to say that the Brewers have won this series. I will say that they definitely have momentum going into tonight, because the Mets are in a similar spot as to where the Brewers were going into yesterday's game. And that momentum carried up until the 8th inning for the New York Mets. And I'll say this too, if the Brewers defense has played, if they would have played like they've been playing all year, like just good and didn't make errors, the Mets would not have nearly any runs on the board. I think they'd probably have scored like 3 runs, 3 or 4 runs over the course of those 2 games that weren't because of or after those errors were committed. Like, the pitching has done very well, and I don't think we're giving them enough credit. You saw Payamps come in yesterday. It felt like bad things were going to happen again. The bases did get loaded, but he did get out of it. But really, the bullpen yesterday pitched. They were nails. They had to come in the 4th inning for Montas. He got through 3 2/3. And then after that, the Mets did not put anything up on the board. The bullpen yesterday, they pitched like Pat Murphy expected them to pitch in game 1 of this series. And that performance that you saw yesterday by the bullpen, that backs up what Murphy was trying to do in that game one. Like it's, and of course you heard Freddie Peralta talk about it after the game. He was very frustrated. You could see it visibly. You could hear it in his voice that he was mad that he was not sent out there for the fifth inning because he had settled in and retired 9 straight, which, and Murphy has done a better job not going by analytics, but if you do go by analytics, I do think that was the right decision because Freddie Peralta's ERA when it came to the fifth inning, I mentioned it yesterday, has been awful, like really bad. He could pitch a really good four innings, and then once it gets to the fifth, whatever the reason is, he just doesn't do well. So he gave the bullpen the ball, and the team had the lead. And then crap just hit the fan, and things went bad in game one. But yesterday, they didn't even have the lead. But in the fourth inning, even, they didn't even let Montas get through that fourth, which was the right decision. He was running into a little bit of trouble there. He gave the bullpen the ball, said, let's go through the rest of this game, give us an opportunity to win. And that was exactly what they did. This team is constructed on that bullpen and the defense. And those were two things that were steady through the last 5 innings of that game yesterday. 5 1/3 innings. And that is why the Milwaukee Brewers won. That and, of course, timely hitting. Timely hitting by Jackson Chourio and Garrett Mitchell. It just gives you life. It gives you hope for today that this Brewers team can just get through this series. If they lose to Philly, that honestly, that can sit fine in my heart because that is a true expectation. I did not want to go into this Mets series with the expectation that the Milwaukee Brewers could not get through a 3-game set and that they were going to be taken out of the wild card once again. I'm number one happy that they were able to get a win. And of course, number two, happy that they have an opportunity. They can go and win the series tonight. And I think that is a true possibility. Tobias Myers will be on the mound for the Crew. I said, how undaunted can you be? How resilient is this team? Are they going to follow the motto that they have went by the entire regular season? Can they carry that after going down 1-0, after blowing a lead in game one of that wild card and having all of the life sucked out of you and showing absolutely no life at the end of that first game? 15 batters after the lead was taken by the Mets. 15 batters were retired consecutively for the Milwaukee Brewers. They did not get a single guy on base. All of the momentum was there for New York. And then Jackson Chourio, and at bat number 1, said, we're going to take it back. Gave it back, and then the Mets, they took the lead once again. But that bullpen just pitched consistently well. They bent a little bit, but they did not break. Trevor McGill, beautiful inning there by him. Jared Koenig came in. He did his job. Joe Ross, who I was actually, I was questioning the decision when I saw Joe Ross go out there to pitch in a 1-run ball game in the playoffs. But Joe Ross got her done, baby. Like they pitched as a team. They played as a team throughout that last part of the game, and it's hard to describe. You can go from the low lows to the high highs, and I'm an emotional fan, if you couldn't tell yet, especially when it comes to my Brewers. I was very low for quite a while. And actually, after that top of the 8th inning, I drove Bree home. We were watching at the bar that I work at here in La Crosse. We work at Who's on Third. We were watching it there. Bree wanted to start getting ready for bed. She gets up early and gets ready for her work day, so she wanted to go home a little bit earlier than I wanted to. So I drove her home thinking, okay, maybe we miss one at bat. I should have thought it through in my head that I was going to be missing Jackson Chourio's at bat, but I got home quick. I was here in about 6 minutes, and I don't know what pitch of that at bat he hit the home run on, but I missed it by like 15 seconds because I turned it on and I saw Perkins walking up to the plate, and I looked up and I was like, wait, there's nobody out. Why is Perkins up there with nobody out? Chourio should have been up. And then I looked at the score. I was like, oh my gosh, Jackson Chourio just hit another home run. And another one to right field too. This kid's a superstar. And then I went on Twitter and I tweeted it, and I believe this 100%. The Milwaukee Brewers saved over $200 million with the contract that they signed him to. If you didn't hear this, Jackson Chourio was signed to an 8-year, $82 million contract before the season for the Milwaukee Brewers. They signed him before he'd even stepped on a major league field. Where he's at right now, he's going to take third in the NL MVP voting. No, not NL Rookie of the Year. He might actually get some MVP votes too. But the kid is 20 years old. You can already see that this kid has a clutch gene in him, which for a superstar, you have to have, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And you've seen it in his first 2 games in the playoffs for the Milwaukee Brewers. And he did it in both, actually. He had the game-tying hit yesterday, and then he had the game-tying game-tying hit 2 days ago, and the game-tying hit yesterday. He's got that clutch gene. And I've said it over the course of this podcast, too. If there's anybody that I want up there to go and tie the game or get the lead for the Milwaukee Brewers, I want the bat in the hands of Jackson Chourio. And time again, he continues to prove that at an age where he can't even legally drink a beer. It is incredible stuff. Since June 26th, they said this on the ESPN broadcast yesterday, Jackson Chourio is third in the National League in WAR, which is a value stat that values your fielding, your hitting, and your base running. So all of it. It takes it all into account. And he is only behind Shohei Ohtani and Francisco Lindor. And those guys are going to finish first and second in the National League MVP voting. Jackson Chourio, if he continues this through next year, you will be an MVP candidate next year at the age of 21. Could you imagine if the Brewers tried to sign him after this season? That would, I would bet that is at least a $280 to $300 million contract. The way baseball contracts are now, I think you can safely say that he is worth every single penny. Like if they went out and they signed him to $260 million, I would say that deal would be worth it. I'd say he is that caliber of a player, and I'd feel comfortable with that. But they have him for $82 million. And really, for Chourio, it's not even that bad of a deal because he signed that deal at 19. So he's going to be 27 when he gets signed again. He's going to have his, this is his first contract. And you can look at this a lot of different ways, but Jackson Chourio is signing his first, big major league contract, $82 million. That's not slouch money. You got to be a solid player in Major League Baseball to do that, which is why he signed it. It was more of a safety net for him. He's, hey, I'm getting $10 million a year and I haven't proven anything. What if an injury happens? I still get this money. And that's why he signed it. But the Brewers were smart. They got it done, but they knew what this kid had in him. And now we all know, and we see that they actually got him at one heck of a discounted price. So kudos to the Brewers. Kudos to Chourio. Kudos to Mitchell. Kudos to the bullpen for getting everything done yesterday. Got another ball game tonight. 6 p.m. is the first pitch. Tobias Myers will be facing Jose Quintana, an old foe for the New York Mets. He pitched previously for the Chicago Cubs. I remember there was actually a season the Brewers were trying to sign him, but Quintana will be facing them tonight in a win or go home playoff scenario. The only baseball game actually on tonight. The Brewers have the national stage for the first time in a long time, it feels like, where they're the only game going on. It's going to be a pretty crazy environment. I'm very excited. This is what you hope for. It might just be a wild card series, but just go out and take it. This Brewers national stage. Go out and prove why you should be talked about. Watching the ESPN broadcast try to talk about the Brewers, and this is another dig that I have. The broadcast on ESPN has been terrible. I don't know if you guys were watching in the 9th inning, but they interviewed Garrett Mitchell and they actually missed a pitch that was going on, an important pitch in the 9th inning. ESPN decided to show the interview over the pitch, which is absolutely flippin' ridiculous. They've done a terrible job I don't know why they don't let local broadcasts do these games. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me. These ESPN teams, they do what they can, of course, to figure out what these teams are, what they're going to talk about over the course of the game, but they know nothing compared to what the local broadcasts do. And that's even for the Mets side. Like, I feel like I know just as much or more about the Mets team than this ESPN broadcast does. But when it comes to these Brewers, like, sometimes they even like pronounce Chourio's name wrong. They say Chourio. Like, it's they haven't watched Brewers baseball because they haven't been on a national stage. But now they are. People are going to start to learn about them, and just go take down the Mets, man. Go on, and then we'll worry about Philly after. Go win tonight, and I have not been this excited for a Brewers game in a long time. Like a win and you get to advance game. I don't think the Brewers have had one of these where they've had an opportunity. If they win, they get to advance in the series. This has not happened for the Brewers since 2019 when they had that one game playoff against the Washington Nationals. And we're not going to talk about how that one ended up. But we've waited 5 years for a game like this, and we get it. And it's in Milwaukee, and they have the momentum, the ball's in their court. So that game will be on for me tonight. Sorry, we're not talking Packers or Badgers. Not a whole lot of jazz going on. There's still the kicker battle for Wisconsin and the Badgers. They're dealing with the alumni going and talking bad about them. And Luke Fickell, his response to that, pretty much saying that it doesn't matter what they say, which whatever you can read into that if you'd like. Sorry, not covering that as much. Big thing today. It's a Wednesday. Brewers playoff baseball. Win or go home. Be Tobias Myers against Jose Quintana, 6 p.m. first pitch. It'll be on, and we'll be back to talk about it tomorrow on another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese. I'm your host, Cody Depius, and we'll see you once again tomorrow.